I welcome you to Messiah Revelation Ministry. It's an end-time ministry. Today we are focusing on cyber pandemic. I'm not sure whether you have heard the term before, cyber pandemic. We are in the era of pandemics. You saw what happened with the C-19 in 2020. We are in 2021 and they are talking about cyber pandemic. The World Economic Forum is talking about cyber pandemic. It's the World Economic Forum that is resetting the global system. And when they talk about the global reset, you know what they mean. It is re-engineering, a plan to re-engineer the world to conform to the dictates of the new world order. And the World Economic Forum is warning about cyber pandemics. We are in the era of cyber warfare. Whether you are talking about the cyber attack of Iranian nuclear facilities, or whether you are talking about the cyber attack on gas pipelines in the United States. Recently, you saw what happened in the United States, where there were cyber attacks on gas pipelines, and as a result, many filling stations were out of gas in so many parts of the United States. This is what I'll call cyber pandemic, and the World Economic Forum is warning that this cyber pandemic potentially will increase in the coming years. You can see that the objective of this cyber pandemic, cyber attacks, is to destroy economies. The Co-Vid has actually destroy so many economies globally, including United States, including other nations in the world. But the cyber pandemic, the cyber attacks, is taking the world to a new level. You can imagine the consequences of so many cyber attacks. This time, we are talking about cyber attacks on gas pipelines, and that potentially can destroy, dismantle the economy of the United States. And the cyber attack can take other forms, and it could take more dangerous turns. And don't forget about EMP, electromagnetic pulse. And that type of attack can destroy the electrical systems in the United States. If that happens, then we are going to see another level of destruction. I believe that the time has come for nations to be weakened as the new world order is taking shape. And I believe that it will be an objective to dismantle the United States economy so that the US would not be a hindrance to the inauguration of the new world order as part of the global reset that is being championed by the World Economic Forum. And so when you hear about pandemics, it is not only diseases that are going to be coming into the world, and you can see that the pandemic can take other directions. There could be cyber attacks, and they can pick their targets, whether cyber attacks on banks, on hospitals, airports. The question we ask ourselves is this: who is behind the cyber attacks? And when there's a cyber attack on gas pipelines in the United States, the question we ask is, who is behind that? There was a time that the U.S. prided itself as a nation that is free from terrorist attacks. They were worried about terrorist attacks in other parts of the world. And I believe that the first shocker came when there was a terrorist attack on federal building in Oklahoma. If you remember the days of Timothy McVeigh, everybody was shocked that this time the terrorist attack on a federal building in the United States was planned by Americans, and it was the result of homegrown terrorism in the United States. Initially, they had blamed the attack on foreigners, probably Arabs and Palestinians or whatever. But later on, they realized that it was an American, a homegrown American who bombed the federal building in Oklahoma City. His name is Timothy McVeigh. So who is behind these cyber attacks on gas pipelines in the United States? Is there any connection between the attackers and foreign entities? Is Russia involved? Is Iran involved? Is China involved in that? It's very clear that whoever is involved, whatever groups are involved in the cyber attacks, we are sure that they are using this as a test run for more cyber attacks. And so it's clear that anything can happen as the global economy is being reset, as the world is being reset by the World Economic Forum. We should expect other pandemics. And so we are moving from disease pandemics to cyber pandemic or pandemics. It's very clear that it is not a pandemic, it's a plandemic. The cyber attack is not an ordinary event. A cyber attack on gas pipelines in the United States is not a mere coincidence. It's a plandemic. And so we are moving from a pandemic to a plandemics. And some of these things, I believe, will be planned, and potentially there could be EMP plandemics. I believe these are all parts of the great global reset, resetting the world, changing global power alignments, and bringing all nations to be part of a new world order that will be used by the Antichrist who is coming. It shows that we are in the last days, and big nations are falling, or they will fall, and they will fall internally. The pandemics, whether you're talking about C-19, will cause internal deterioration of nations. The pandemic, when you're talking about cyber attacks, will also intensify and cause nations to be weakened from within. And don't forget that as the nations are weakened from within, potentially, then there could be a foreign attack. If you have watched this channel, you have heard visions that I've had about attacks coming from other nations of the United States. Specifically, I mentioned Russia. So we are not living in good times. We are living in perilous times. And so you saw a pandemic in 2020, a different pandemic or a pandemic, and now in 2021, you are seeing a cyber pandemic attack on U.S. oil and gas pipelines. And who knows what will happen later. These are all telling us that the days of nations are numbered, and there's going to be chaos all over the international system, and that will be the grounds for the Antichrist to come to the scene, pretending to fix the problems, but lo and behold, is going to cause mayhem and cause so many people to accept his mark of the beast, so that they will be cast into the lake of fire. The signs are very clear when you see all these pandemics, when you see cyber pandemics. They are all part of the plan to set the stage for the destruction of the United States and the position of a new world order. Thank you for this message.